In 1972, America had a problem it couldn't burn or ignore. 170 million tires were rolling off factory lines every year. 4 billion of them were already sitting in stockpiles across the country, and nobody knew what to do with the rest. Tires don't compress. Bury them, and they trap pockets of air, then slowly work their way back to the surface like they're trying to escape. Pile them up, and eventually one catches fire. A tire fire doesn't burn for hours. It burns for months, releasing black smoke thick enough to show up on satellite photos. And every one of those tires collects rainwater, which becomes a breeding ground for mosquitoes. So when a Florida ocean engineering professor named Ray McAllister proposed a solution, people listened. McAllister co-founded an organization called Broward Artificial Reef Incorporated, and his pitch was simple. Sink the tires, bundle them together, drop them off the coast of Fort Lauderdale, and let marine life do the rest. Coral and sponges attached to hard surfaces. Fish follow the coral. In theory, you turn an environmental liability into an artificial reef and turn empty seafloor into one of the largest reef systems on the planet. There was one legal wrinkle. Congress had just passed the Marine Protection Research and Sanctuaries Act that same year to regulate what got dumped in the ocean. Tires used as reef material fell into a gray zone the law hadn't anticipated. Goodyear didn't wait for that question to get resolved. The company backed the project with a publicity campaign, including a stunt where a blimp was painted gold and flown over the coastline. The Army Corps of Engineers signed off. Starting in 1972, more than 100 private boats plus a Navy vessel began hauling tires out to sea. By 1974, roughly 2 million tires had been bundled with steel clips and nylon rope and lowered onto a 36-acre patch of ocean floor sitting 60 to 70 feet below the surface. At the time, it was celebrated as one of the most ambitious environmental engineering projects in American history. Nobody involved had tested what would happen next. Steel clips and nylon rope work fine on a highway. They hold up to sun rain and decades of traffic. But a highway is not the ocean floor. Saltwater corrodes steel far faster than fresh water does, and constant UV exposure breaks down nylon fibers over time, even underwater. Within roughly 2 years, the bundles meant to hold 2 million tires together started coming apart. The clips rusted through. The rope gave out, and one by one, the tires meant to anchor a reef system for decades started drifting free across the seafloor. This is the part almost nobody caught in 1974. Loose tires in open water don't behave like inert rock. During a storm, a tire becomes a projectile. It carries just enough buoyancy and surface area to get picked up by wave action and hurled through anything in its path, including real coral. The first major test came in 1998 when Hurricane Bonnie tore through the area and scattered tires further across the ocean floor. The real damage came in 2005 when Hurricanes Dennis, Katrina, Rita, and Wilma hit the Florida coast back to back. Loose tires were dragged for miles. Some washed up on beaches in North Carolina, more than 500 miles north of where they'd been dropped. Along the way, they collided with coral colonies that had taken decades to form, grinding them down on contact. The damage wasn't only physical. Tires leach more than 120 chemical compounds into surrounding water, including heavy metals and a group of toxins called PAH. In 2020, researchers identified a compound in tire rubber called 6-per-dollar-quinone. It's proven lethal to coho salmon in extremely small concentrations, and it's now been detected in marine environments worldwide. What was pitched as a reef had quietly become a slow-release source of ocean pollution, sitting a few dozen feet below boats full of tourists. A project built to solve a waste problem had created a new one. This one was underwater, spread across hundreds of miles of coastline, and getting worse with every hurricane season. Someone had to clean this up, and for decades, that someone was whoever happened to have a grant, a dive team, or a reason to care. In 2001, marine biologist Robin Sherman led an effort funded by a $30,000 grant from NOAA. Her team pulled 1,600 tires out of the water, working out to roughly $17 per tire for a project that had dumped 2 million. The next serious push came between 2007 and 2009 when Navy and Army dive teams used the site for live training exercises. Military divers got real-world practice, and the reef got cleaned up as a side effect. Around 127,000 tires were removed during this stretch. Then those same units got deployed to Iraq, Afghanistan, and later Haiti, and the effort simply stopped. Nobody replaced it. Cleanup didn't pick back up in a meaningful way until 2016, when a $4.3 million contract funded the removal of roughly 250,000 tires at a cost of about $28 per tire, nearly double what it cost Robin Sherman's team back in 2001. By 2016, total tires removed sat around 200,000, and Florida's own estimate put the remaining count at 650,000. A more recent estimate from the Ocean Cleanup Group, 4Ocean, published in 2022, put the number still on the seafloor at over 500,000. The most recent contract, known as SW349, was signed in September 2025. It's scheduled to run through 2032. 58 years after the tires first went in the water, there's one genuinely good outcome buried in all of this. In the decades the tires sat there, some coral managed to colonize them. Rather than let that coral get destroyed during removal, teams have salvaged and transplanted it elsewhere along the coast. So far, 747 coral fragments have been relocated, and 89% survived their first year in a new location. A small silver lining inside a 50-year cleanup bill. Here's the part of this story that should make you angry. Goodyear backed this project publicly in 1972. They funded the marketing. They flew a gold blimp over the coast to celebrate it. In the 50 years since the bundles fell apart, the company has never issued a public statement about the project, never contributed a dollar to the cleanup, and never formally acknowledged it happened. Compare that to what happened in France. A similar artificial reef project off the Riviera coast in the 1980s also failed for similar reasons. When it needed cleaning up, the French government committed €1 million to the effort, and the tire manufacturer Michelin voluntarily added another €200,000 on top of that, without being legally forced to. In Florida, the bill has landed on taxpayers on military training budgets that were repurposed for a corporate mess, and eventually on a private company called 4Ocean, which sells ocean cleanup bracelets, partly to help fund tire removal. A company selling bracelets is doing more direct financial cleanup work than the tire manufacturer, whose name was on the original press releases. Artificial reefs aren't inherently a bad idea. Decommissioned New York City subway cars have been sitting off the coast of Delaware for years, dense enough and inert enough to stay exactly where they were placed. Gibraltar has been building a reef out of scrapped vehicles and concrete since 1973, and it's still functioning as intended. The difference in both cases comes down to one thing. The materials were heavy, stable, and chemically inert. They didn't need steel clips or nylon rope to hold them in place, and they didn't leach anything into the surrounding water. Even when artificial reefs work exactly as designed, marine researchers at the Ocean Conservancy have raised a separate concern. Some evidence suggests artificial reefs don't create new fish populations at all. They may simply concentrate fish that already exist in the surrounding area, which sounds like a win until you realize it also makes those fish easier to locate and easier to catch. The coral ecosystem that used to exist off Fort Lauderdale took centuries to form. It can't be rebuilt by dropping 2 million tires on top of it and hoping nature adapts. The project's own outcome proves the point its founders never tested. Before you scale an idea across 36 acres of ocean floor, test whether it survives one hurricane season first.